Viewer discretion is advised. The following content may contain material that some viewers find disturbing or offensive. While we strive to create content that is informative and engaging, the topics discussed today touch upon sensitive subjects. We believe in open discussion and exploring complex themes, but we also understand that certain content can be challenging for some individuals. Your well-being is our priority. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, please feel free to click away. We encourage you to proceed with caution and take care of yourself. For those who choose to continue, thank you for joining us in this important conversation. We appreciate your viewership and encourage you to follow our channel for more thought-provoking content.
God would choose a side, but the sky chose fire and the earth chose pride. Now serpents sit where saints once prayed, and Eden burns where the lambs were laid. Ashes over Eden, no more sacred stone, only twisted relics in a no man's zone. Heaven's gates are shattered, stars are dripping red. Ashes over Eden, the living praise the dead. To trust. They told us God would choose a side, but the sky chose fire and the earth chose pride. Now serpents sit where saints once prayed, and Eden burns where the lambs were laid. Ashes over Eden, stars are dripping red, and Eden burns where the lambs were laid. Stars are
trembles on the edge. A routine dawn shattered by the sudden roar of missiles. Operation Epic Fury unleashed by the US and Israel against Iran on February 28, 2026. Explosions ripple across Iran's nuclear and military installations as the world watches, breath held. In the fallout, diplomacy gives way to fear. Iran retaliates, its missiles soaring over borders, striking at US allies and igniting proxy forces in Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen. The Middle East erupts in chaos. The Strait of Hormuz, lifeline for global oil, slams shut. Prices skyrocket, economies stagger, and the world realizes this crisis will not stay contained. Missiles and drones rain across cities, military bases, and vital infrastructure. Night after night, sirens wail from Amman to Riyadh to Tel Aviv. Mutual defense pacts snap into place. Russia and China, invoking security agreements, deploy forces and issue dire ultimatums. Allies rally, enemies circle. NATO activates Article 5. American and European forces mobilize as alliance boundaries blur, stretched by unrelenting attack and rising suspicion. Civilian suffering increases. Refugee columns fill roads, their faces etched with confusion and loss. Humanitarian agencies are overwhelmed. The UN Security Council assembles in an emergency session, voices cracking beneath the weight of history. Calls for ceasefire echo, but struggle to pierce the din of conflict. Tensions blaze between nuclear states. Submarines vanish silent beneath the waves. Bombers scramble. Leaders shelter underground, and fingers hover near unthinkable buttons. Humanity strains under relentless violence, diplomacy's voice growing hoarse. Against a tide of propaganda, independent journalism fights to illuminate the truth. Protesters surge worldwide, New York, Berlin, Tehran, Beijing, raising banners for peace. All demand an end to the senseless bloodshed before catastrophe becomes permanent. A global plea rises: ceasefire, lay down the weapons, risk diplomacy, not annihilation. This is the crossroads. From here, civilization's fate will be decided.
Am I the only one who didn't see this plot twist coming? Gavin McInnes, Mr. Proud Boy himself, says he's jumping off the Trump train. But is he really? So here's the hot take. Gavin McInnes, yes, Gavin, says he's out if Trump sends troops into Iran. I say I'm off the Trump train. I don't know what that means. Seriously? Is this a breakup or just a dramatic pause before the next season? Let's get real. Trump's threatening boots on Iranian ground, and suddenly, Gavin finds a conscience. The guy who told everyone he left the Proud Boys while still cheering them on from the sidelines now draws the line at foreign wars. Please. But here's the kicker. Gavin calls Trump the best we've got while ranting about regime change in loser countries we don't care about. So, he's done with Trump. Unless he's not. Got it. Maybe the real drama isn't over Trump or Iran. Maybe it's about who gets the loudest mic in the outrage Olympics. Stay tuned, because in the culture war, loyalty is as cheap as the next hot take.
Gavin McInnes, a true icon in the populist liberty movement, censored.tv, one of the most censored people in the world. Gavin_McInnes on X joins us to balance the hour to give his analysis and take your calls. Gavin, I know you're not anti-Israel, and neither am I. I know you really are worried about Islam as a true cancer. I'm a big fan of yours. I've known you for decades. I don't have your view yet, though, on what, because I just asked him to get you on today. I respect your view. What do you think of this? Where do you think this is going? And what do you think of expanding the war and troops on the ground?
I'm not a Netanyahu guy. I'm pro-Israel. If they want to spread, go bananas. I don't want anything to do with it. And yeah, we lost, 5 guys now from this attack. We lost almost as many in Austin, Texas from an Islamic terrorist. I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic. Remember he did this in Syria in 2017, 2018, where he just went in. It was guts and glory, bombings. It was peace through strength, and then we got the hell out of there. So I don't like the idea of 4 weeks. If more Americans start dying in any consequential numbers, then I'm off the Trump train. But as far as right now goes, let's stay optimistic and just assume it's just some shock and awe, some peace through strength, and then we're gone, and there won't be that many casualties.
I hope you're right. I was saying last hour, I don't know how I even get off the Trump train because he's doing so much good in so many other areas, but at the same time, I cannot support sending our soldiers there. Plus, he promised to, quote, stop any nuclear program, but said no regime change. He said it. Vance said it. Gabbard said it. I have the clips. I played them yesterday. Him doing this is beginning to break a major promise. But then meanwhile, I can't then do like Nick Fuentes said, a mutual friend. We don't agree with him on quite a few things, but intellectually, we debate him and don't hate him as a person. In fact, I think he's very smart, and I enjoy listening to him. It's thought provoking. But he's like, I'm going to vote Democrat now. Well, they want total nuclear war with Russia, so they're like 10 times worse than even this new Trump. It's very paradoxical.
Yeah, say 1,000 troops. Say we lose 1,000 troops, like Maggie Thatcher did in the Falklands. That's unacceptable. I'm bluffing, right? What am I going to do? Not vote for him next term? Not vote right next term? I mean, he has us by the balls, but that would be a massive betrayal. And we've been sitting here talking about ICE and talking about immigration and saying, I don't know what the Dems are so upset about. We're getting exactly what we asked for. So if you're mad at him, getting illegals out of the country, then you're mad at the democratic process because that's what we signed up for. This isn't what we signed up for. We signed up for no more wars, no more regime change. Now, that doesn't mean I'm against peace through strength, but I want shock and awe to be in and out. And if we go through and we lose 1,000 young American men to what could be World War III if China and Russia get involved, then it's a massive betrayal. It's fraud is what it is. Well,
exactly. I'm not a big gambler, but I mean, I've been on a cruise ship and I've been to Vegas, a few times or hang out with Joe Rogan and we go play poker or blackjack or, I go do roulette. It's fun, but I don't then, once I lose money, stay and try to make my money back. I don't go bet the house and then 3 days later I'm totally bankrupt. I mean, this feels like degenerate gambling at this point. I think we're going down a real, I don't think you roll the dice with stuff like this.
Yeah, well, Russia's weak now because of Ukraine, and the weakest they've been in a long time. China's just had their whole military decapitated, so they're screwed. So it might just be a good time to show off. I don't know. I hope that's all it is. But if China and Russia were to sort of wake up and get involved, I mean, that's not Donald Trump. That's not what the populist movement is about. That's not Make America Great Again. And he also bluffs quite a bit. Like, remember the tariffs? We were talking about 100% tariffs with China. All kinds, like LG was talking about shutting down all their factories in Vietnam. And that turned out to be a bluff. So he's really good at scaring people. I don't know. I'm still on the Trump train, and I'm still praying that this is another Trump bluff.
Well, there's no doubt. Leaving the carbon tax, according to Lord Box's analysis, others' analysis, 2 billion will die in 10 years, cutting off half the carbon. They want to cut off, quote, half the food supply, in John Kerry's words, to, quote, save the earth. That'll create a total war when there's no food in every actuary. Securing the border, finding half the missing kids, getting $20 trillion invested in the country, getting DEI out of the Pentagon, the Pentagon pulling out of all the Ivy League universities, saying they're globalist against America. That's all beautiful. That's why stuff like this is such a fly in the ointment.
Yes, totally. And let's not forget how evil Islam is and how it's encroaching on the West. I mean, we have Tommy Robinson in America for the first time, and he couldn't have come at a better time because he's declared war on Islam in Britain, and he's putting up a hell of a fight despite the state throwing him in jail for the same crime many times. And I think Americans tend to poo-poo Islam, and they go, well, there's some frauds. There's some Somali pirates in Dearborn. No, it's a global problem, and it's an American problem. And we've just had an Islamic attack in Austin. They're treating Texas, the entire state, as a fifth column with these gigantic mosques, and you have people on the streets screaming about dogs and beer and pork. So there's a hostile takeover going on in Texas right now. The Khamenei, the Ayatollah, has killed between 7,000 and 30,000. We have no idea, but definitely 7,000 minimum. Terrorism and Islam are hand in hand, and they're taking over. So, it is good to flex and show Islam that we've had enough.
Sure. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. I was doing a Saturday show. You know the numbers. You can predict it as well. I had Brown and Morello on out of the Alex Jones Network studios, and at about 2 o'clock, I said, listen, we've hit him. I believe the Ayatollah is dead. I believe the Pentagon. I said the biggest concentrations are in Michigan and Minnesota and New York and New Jersey. But I said for the largest just overall distribution, it's Texas, the largest amount of Shiites. I said I predict the next week or two, we will see Shiite attacks, sleeper cells in Texas. It happened 7 hours later. I mean, literally in downtown Austin, in the bar restaurant district, shot like 18 people, killed 3. Thank God the police showed up instantly, blasted him within like 10 seconds. He unloaded like 1 mag, and the cops were there and got him. And I'm sure our DA will probably prosecute him. I mean, I'm serious. They've already got him lawyers. So that's how he's literal Soros DA. So that's where we are here. And this guy's wearing a Property of Allah shirt. We broke the news from federal law enforcement that got into his house that he even wrote notes, saying to his people, yeah, I'm going to go kill everybody because Jesus is a horrible person and America's horrible, and they killed the Ayatollah. So my concern is, knowing the big Shiite population here, if Iran gives its order to their Hezbollah sleeper cells, it won't be some lone wolf guy inspired. I don't think this guy got orders. That's all. He just did it because he was pissed off, because I talked to people that saw the stuff. We could be dealing with a real problem here. What happens if that unfolds, Gavin McInnes?
It is unfolding. It's never not unfolded. It goes back to the Crusades. Like, everyone blames the Jews for everything when it rains on their birthday, and they say, well, the Jews let in these terrorists and the Jews let in the Muslims. But in Britain, for example, it was more Tony Blair and his obsession with rubbing the working class's nose in diversity. And I always say to, like, this sort of blanket anti-Semitism, I'm like, okay, what about all the 10 Christians who die every day in the Middle East? What about the massive slaughter of Christians all over Africa?
I was about to say, it's hundreds of thousands a year. This guy was from Senegal, 97% Muslim, because they don't let anybody else live there that isn't Muslim. I mean, the biggest murder of Christians is in Africa. But let's go back to Israel for a minute. I'm still banned on YouTube. I'm still banned on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere else. So are you. You just recently got brought back to X, I believe. So we're all still banned. But then there's giant YouTube channels literally worshiping Hitler being pushed by YouTube. And I'm not saying censor them, but if I was here, I'm not anti-Israel because I'm getting a paycheck. I get nothing but called an anti-Semite by the Israeli newspapers. So it's like crazy. Just because I won't say only evil comes out of Israel, I'm bad. It's all you've got is persecution. I mean, you are still under attack, even though you supporting Israel overall is just a small part of what you do. We're not getting some special dividend for saying we don't want to nuke Israel.
Yeah, let's have some nuance here, please. Like, I support the Iranian people. I hate the Ayatollahs. I support Canada. I hate their prime minister. I support Israel. I think Netanyahu allowed for that massive attack where 1,500 were killed. I think he let October 7th happen, and so do a ton of Israelis. Most Israelis I know hate Netanyahu and don't support his warmongering. So
that's right. He has a 15%. He has a 15% approval rating.
Yeah, he gets Jews killed. So I think the guy has a bee in his bonnet because they killed his brother, and he's been obsessed with war and revenge ever since. And maybe that's what you need over there. It's none of my beeswax, really.
Well, that's right. His brother died in a daring raid to rescue hostages in Africa.
Yeah, if you've ever been to Israel, you read their media, and they are way more critical of Israel than American media is. I find that anti-Semitism is more popular in Israel than it is in America. They've got Muslims in their parliament. They've got Muslim entire districts of their country. So we can have some nuance here. I don't support Netanyahu. I love the people of Israel. I don't want wars. I definitely don't want America getting involved. And that's the way a lot of Israelis feel.
Well, yeah, you know how I know that Hamas was founded by Israel? Because it was first broke by Israeli newspapers.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
You know how I know about Israel staging the Levant affair? Israeli newspapers. You know how I know about Israel staging other stuff? Because I had the Mossad guy on that exposed it.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is we should be critical of corruption with George W. Bush in 9/11. We should be critical of Xi Jinping, not the Chinese people. Exactly. And then that's what I'm saying is, not that we're defending Israel, it's defending sanity, this mental illness where people literally believe every bad thing that happens on earth, I like it rains on your birthday, I say slip on a banana peel is Israel.
Yes. Well, it's tedious, it's low IQ, and it's pedantic, and we have to understand that the whole context too of, like, yes, we were involved with Hezbollah and Taliban and all these horrific terrorist groups, and that's the mess you get into when you start trying to deal with the Middle East. Look at Afghanistan. Look at what a quagmire that was. So the only way to handle that disgusting backwards culture that is the Middle East is to dip in, blow everything up, and get out. Like, look at Saddam Hussein. Iraq was better off under that deranged dictator. That's because the Middle East is the third world. I'm sorry.
Oh, he
And
was
you
against
cannot
the
go in there.
Shiites, the Sunnis. He played rock and roll and had Playboy on the shelves, and then we overthrew him and said he was with Al-Qaeda.
Look, I'm a Western chauvinist. The West is the best. Every time we try to throw pearls before swine and show these people, show the non-Western world what democracy is, what liberty is, what ethics is, we always end up making it worse than when we went in. So I don't want anything to do with the non-Western world. They suck. and if we're there for 4 weeks, that's getting involved.
And 4 weeks turns into, remember the lockdowns with COVID, 2 weeks to flatten the curve?
Well, we thought Ukraine and Russia was going to be 10 days. It's looking like it can never end now. It's like Pakistan and India. They're just going to be fighting at the border for generations. Some cultures are just built to war. And we've been through World War I, World War II. We learned our lesson the hard way. We don't want to do this anymore. And again, I don't mind showing off and flexing your muscles once in a while, but the second those planes start landing with boots on the ground, I mean, I'm just assuming he was bluffing when he told the Daily Mail that he's not ruling out boots on the ground, because that's just a different America. That's a neocon America, and we tried that, and it didn't work.
Now, I got 100 questions. I want to come back and take phone calls from all the great callers that are holding. But Gavin McInnes is our guest. What else, where we're all focused on Iran, is on your radar? Republicans won't pass the SAVE Act, even though 90% of Republicans want it, 70% of Democrats. What is going on there?
The Democrats have never been more embarrassing, have they? Like, who do they have? It's such a loser festival. And that State of the Union was beautiful 4D chess, where he baited them into making fools of themselves and not standing up for the rights of citizens over the rights of illegals. I mean, I want to do a whole green screen on the cavalcade of crust that is the Democratic Party, from Ilhan Omar to Rashida Tlaib, Eric Swalwell, like Pete Buttigieg. Who do they have? AOC, Mamdani? I mean, they keep getting votes because women will vote with their emotions and young people will vote based on, I don't know, who has less hate. But here in the real world, I have never seen a more embarrassing Democratic Party than the past few years. And they just get worse every day. No one supports them. Even this thing. Like, they protest in my neighborhood. They protest all over the country every Saturday. And they just trade in their Palestinian flags for Ukrainian flags. They trade in their Ukrainian flags for Iranian flags. Now they love the Ayatollah. He keeps ridiculing them, and they keep getting more and more embarrassing. Now they're supporting the supreme leader of Iran and saying that it's a shame that we lost him.
You read my mind. I was about to go there screaming, Allah Akbar, death to America. It's Muslims and old white women who literally can't even find Iran on a map. How bizarre is that?
What strange bedfellows. And we saw this with LGBTQ for Palestine, drag queens for Palestine. We've seen burqas that are rainbow colored. Like, you have no idea who you're supporting. They just have this attitude of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And just like the blanket anti-Semitism, it's just low IQ garbage. And I think Trump is smart enough to play them and make them support Ayatollahs and show everyone how unbelievably ridiculous they are. And their support just keeps dwindling. I'm very confident that we're going to have another MAGA presidency after Trump.
Let's talk about how we get that done, but just briefly, why are you and I still censored on almost everything?
I think there's a lot of fat, ugly nerds who are in big tech and they resent us because they have daddy issues and we're good dads. That's all of this comes down to daddy issues. That's what the hatred of Trump is all about. Ultimately, it's the left are losers. They took something stupid in college like speech pathology. They got $250,000 in debt, and their dad is disappointed in them. So I can either be disappointed in myself and accept that I screwed up and I'm a loser, or I can hate not just my dad, but the concept of dads in general. And that's what all of this is. All Trump hate is daddy issues, and all Gavin and Alex hate is daddy issues. Anyone who supports the family is not only anti-Marxist, but it makes them feel bad about the fact that they're childless and they screwed up and they don't have a future. So they discredit us and they ban us and censor us because we're pro-family. And despite being divorced a bunch of times, Trump symbolizes dads and families. I don't know why. That's just the way it is.
Well, he symbolizes alpha males. You're right, though. They've come out in documents in the UK and the US saying transgenderism is about ending men. We need less men. I mean, they're actually admitting that.
Yeah. Well, if you can smash the patriarchy, then the losers win. And we're not going to allow that to happen. Sorry, losers. You're toast.
You said that 20 years ago, and I kind of got it. Now it's admitted. It's you're dead on. Let's come back with Gavin and take your phone calls on this war and where this is all going. We're going to go boom, boom, boom to your calls to cover a bunch of other issues with Gavin McInnes. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Last election cycles, billions of dollars flooded into American politics, much of it from sources voters can't even see. That's not a twist in a movie, that's real life. Today, I'm diving into a conversation that's blowing up. Dark money packs how endorsements get made, maybe even sold. I sat down with Paul Bondar, former Division I football player turned business leader, who's running to represent Texas's Congressional District 32. He came in hot with one core message: the root of the problem is money in the shadows. Here's his playbook: end the dark money loopholes, force real-time donor disclosure, put hard walls between campaigns and the PACs that technically don't coordinate. He wants quarterly audits you can actually read on your phone, tougher penalties for shell games, a stronger FEC that doesn't take years to act. Bondar says if you can't tell who's paying for the ad you just watched, you can't trust the message. Clean money, clean elections, simple as that. And then there's the endorsement machine. Stuart Rhodes lays out a claim that's got people talking. He believes Trump endorsements are being brokered by the political orbit around the former president. Just because there's a Trump endorsement by their name doesn't mean that Trump even knows who this person is. If that's true, or even partly true, that's a massive red flag. Because endorsements are supposed to be a shortcut for trust. If they're pay to play, that shortcut sends you off a cliff. So what do you do with all this? Don't take any ad at face value. Look for the funding label. Check if that PAC discloses donors. Treat endorsements like a starting point, not a finish line. Bondar's running on the idea that transparency isn't partisan. It's survival for a real democracy. Whether you agree with him or not, the question stands. If the money's hiding, what else is? Stay curious, stay skeptical, and demand receipts.
This is Stuart Rhodes filling in for Alex on the Alex Jones Show. We are facing a critical moment in our country. We, the people, have got to realize how bad things really are. Like Patrick Henry said, be willing to see the worst and then provide for it and focus on defeating the deep state. I want to bring on a representative, or hopefully a representative for Congress, Mr. Paul Bondar. I'm wearing his T-shirt because I'm working for his campaign, full disclosure. I endorsed Doc Pete Chambers for governor because I know he's a warrior, he's going to fight. I endorsed Trey Traynor in District 21 for Congress for Texas because I know he's going to fight. And then I was honored to endorse Paul Bondar for the same reason. I believe that he'll be a true champion. And I work for Ron Paul, so my standards are pretty high. If you're not going to be an actual another Ron Pauler, I got no interest in you. But I think Paul has the potential to do that. So welcome to the show, Paul. Good to see you again, brother.
Well, thank you, Stuart. I'm honored to be here.
You bet. So let's talk about what's happening in Texas and our nation. So your response to the terrorist attack in Austin.
You know, we got to be very vigilant. Unfortunately, we've had open borders unchecked for all those years with the Biden administration, and frankly, it was treason, frankly. And now we have sleeper cell type people that we have no idea, they're unvetted. And here's the deal: if I get on a domestic flight as a natural born citizen, I have to give my ID. They scan my face. They do biometrics. They know everywhere I'm going as a natural citizen. Yet we have millions of people in this country. We have no idea who they are, where they come from, what they're up to. And so a couple things, we need to be vigilant. We need to be aware of this. And the other thing is, I just hope this doesn't turn into, and I'm not saying it is for sure, a false flag crisis situation where all of a sudden we have an act of terror in this country. And then the solution that government always sells its people for stability and freedom and safety is to give up our freedom. Now, we saw that with 9/11 with the Patriot Act, and we've seen it time and time again. And I'm concerned, and I'm kind of ringing the bell here to hope that people are aware. I believe in that we need to be on alert, and we can't let our guard down. But let's guard against the potential here, because the solution is never government taking over our freedoms under the Constitution. That is not a long-term solution.
Hey man, I think it's beyond a doubt now, and Alex's audience is very savvy. They know this was an intentional invasion. They know this is enemies foreign and domestic. You've got domestic traitors, and I count Governor Abbott among them. How do you feel about Abbott and what he's been doing in Texas when it comes to the border and when it comes to all the mosques being built?
Well, for a long time, I was drinking the Kool-Aid that Governor Abbott was doing a good job. But at the end of the day, as a business owner or a football coach or anybody, you have to take accountability for what goes on with your organization or your team. And Texas needs to be number one in football, but Texas is number one instead with mosques. And this happened under Abbott's watch. And I think, there needs to be some level of accountability that ensues for this. We're in a Texas is number one in the United States in mosques. And if we lose
It's 330 right now, right? Is it 360? What's the latest number? Yeah. It's like two more months get built.
There's like two mosques, I think, being built every, couple weeks that are going up. The accelerated number is just unbelievable. And I think a lot of people were unaware of this. And I'll tell you, it's in our backyard. For people that say, hey, it doesn't affect us. A 10th grade student named Marco up in Wiley ISD broke a story to one of my staffers a couple weeks ago. And we talked to his parents and he said, hey, let's do a video. And we put a video out that probably had, with all the different forwards and shared videos, it probably had close to, we're saying about 3 million views. And what happened was the Wiley ISD was handing out Qurans and different religious, Islam type Habibs or whatever they put on their the girls' heads, and they're violating state and school policy with this. And the principal,
you had Muslims going into the schools with the blessings of the teachers, leftist teachers, conditioning the other students to wear Habibs and to read the Quran. So they're allowed to proselytize inside schools. But if a Christian went in there, what would happen to a Christian?
Well, I think people would be screaming bloody hell that, separation of church and state, separation of church and state. We know what would happen if a Christian group went into a school during school hours and handed out Bibles and different religious type articles. We know that. And so what we have is we have a double standard. We have a double standard, and it's hypocrisy, and it's become an indoctrination issue for some of these places that are doing this, where if we don't prevent, this is against state and school policy. And the principal said, well, we were unaware. We're going to investigate. We were unaware. Come on. You're telling me you don't know what's going on in your own school? What if it was a shooter that went into the school? You're going to be unaware? And so gaslighting ensues because nobody wants to take responsibility.
Right. Yeah, it's the red-green alliance that we've been talking about for so long. You've got the Marxists on one side, that's the red, and you got the jihadists on the other side, and they are linked up at the hip because they both hate Western civilization, they both hate Christianity and want to destroy it. So one thing I want to stress for the audience is that if Texas falls, America falls. And one reason, just one among many, is the Electoral College vote. If Texas goes blue, and they're all going to vote Democrat. If Texas goes blue and flips blue, you'll never see another Republican president again. So I know I'm sure that's on your mind too when it comes to what you see the ticking time bomb here in Texas.
Well, absolutely. And running for, a congressional seat, it's all about everybody representing their specific district. So we don't allow for, Texas to turn blue. And we have strong leadership and everybody takes care of their particular lane and takes care of their particular area so that we cannot allow for Texas to turn blue, because look at the electoral votes. We already have how many votes coming out of California and New York, which are substantial, and Texas is our answer to balance that out. The Big Apple has become the rotten apple, and California is about as wacky as they can get. So,
Yeah, and California used to be
turning that
Reagan
around.
territory. Yeah, California at one time was a Republican stronghold. So they are doing to us, to Texas, what they did to California, what they did to New York. It's the same play, and it is a red-green alliance. And so that's why both of us have endorsed Doc Pete Chambers. We believe that he will be the fighter we need. Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel, retired. I worked with him down after the Texas flood. He's phenomenal. He's a warrior. And you met him, looked right in the eye. What was your assessment of Doc Chambers?
Well, I view Doc Chambers as a no-nonsense guy that's a patriot that is going to work for the average person. He's a military guy that served his country, but in a capacity not for showbiz. He's not a Hollywood politician, and there are Hollywood politicians that exist out there. And in my assessment and talking with Doc, you got to look at who's backing whom. When you're backed by the who's who in DC, it really kind of tips the hand of
Right.
what that politician is all about. And so the funny thing is, endorsements are actually becoming more of indictments. If somebody is getting endorsed by all the who's who in DC and the deep state, and they're trying to drag their guy across the board, across the goal line, that's your answer. Stop listening to what people are saying. Start looking at what people are doing and the alliances that exist. Whether that's endorsements or dark money, they really go hand in hand. And what we have in this country is we really have a syndicate almost style of being able to allow for elections to be meddled with, because dark money is the root of all evil. And for everybody that wants to keep flapping their gums about term limits, I'm for term limits, but you know what the real problem is? Term limits is the weed that we see. The root of the evil is the dark money in the PACs that nobody has no idea where this money is coming from. And so all the way across our nation, it's very, very simple. Most candidates like a Doc P. Chambers, they have to go out as a grassroots guy. They have to raise their money. They can get a maximum of $3,500 per donor, $7,000 per couple. Sounds like a lot of money, but do you know how many of those you have to be able to get when a PAC can go dump 2, 3, 4, 8, 10, 50 million, depending on the race against you? It's a stacked deck. And that's why, if people don't understand that PACs, with the unlimited ability to raise money, but more importantly, with the fact that they don't have to disclose and they can layer a PAC where we have absolutely no accountability or transparency on where this money is coming from, allows for people to essentially be able to play roulette, where they can put money on a number of different candidates and they can elect and try to get in not just one candidate, but multiple candidates to serve some sort of agenda. And this is my assessment of what's going on in our electoral process. You have
Across the
people
country.
that are going, yes, go ahead, Stuart.
Oh, yes, that's going on across the country, not just here in Texas. But here in Texas, it's happening. I mean, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on the campaign, but you're dealing with a situation where your opponent, J.C. Yarbrough, has been supported by 1.5 million in dark money that he will not disclose who they are, correct?
Yeah, as in the words of Jerry Maguire, show us the money. And if you're proud of the money and the money is coming from good conservative folks, you should be as proud to disclose those sources as much as you're proud to run around and talk about your endorsements. I mean, the PAC number is, just to be very clear, it's C009379094. It's Strong PAC, and the Strong PAC has donated just under $1.5 million to buy ads for Mr. Yarbrough's campaign. And these are being purchased out of Dover, Delaware, in the DC Beltline area, Arlington, Virginia, and in Ohio. So I guess I'm really confused when we hear this narrative about, a seventh generation Texan, what's all this out of state buying doing, supporting somebody, and why do we not know who is behind this money? I've asked him several times on stage. He first told me, there was no dark money. And then he said, well, it's my endorsements that are doing it. I said, great, tell me who. Now he has not. He's stonewalled on this issue worse than Richard Nixon, because I think he can't tell or reveal who this money's coming from, because in reality, he's just one of many people. You look at De La Cruz, he's another Air Force candidate that's running, and he's also got support from the Strong PAC as well. He has similar type endorsements. They drop around the same time. And you start looking at what's going on outside of just my specific race. It's interesting that it's anecdotal, but once you start examining that there's a printing press and an economy Costco scale type approach to these elections and how people play. And then guess what they do? They also put bets on the election in some of these different things so that they can get their guys to win, and then they can get their money back after they make these bets by dragging their guys across the goal line. And so this is really a slick investment, in my opinion. That's my opinion on how we're playing with, one hand tied behind our back, and the deep state can say, yes, I'm going to appoint you, I'm going to anoint you, and the election is really a formality because we're going to give you a lot of dark money. Nobody knows who it's coming from, and we're going to roll out all of our endorsements, and now you can kiss the ring and be our puppet for life.
Right.
And
like an Abbott endorsement and a Trump endorsement. And Alex and I are talking about Trump endorsements. For example, Teixeira was endorsed by Trump, the ball player, to replace Chip Roy's seat. And, against Trey Traynor. Who is this guy? He's a baseball player. Well, someone asked Trump about him, said, hey, you endorsed Teixeira. And he's like, who? So President Trump doesn't even know who this man is. The machine around him is selling Trump endorsements, that's what I believe, to pay per play. You want to donate money into our PAC, we'll give you an endorsement. And President Trump doesn't even know who it is. And so MAGA needs to understand, and America First should understand, that because there's a Trump endorsement on there, doesn't mean that Trump even knows who this person is. And so and I think they are understand that.
And that happened, and I'll give you another example. SD09, the state race. It's supposed to be a Republican stronghold plus 17, and it was a special election, right? That just occurred about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And the Republicans were supposed to just dominate in this race. And instead we ended up losing. It was a 30-point swing. And there are articles by, I think it was the Washington Examiner and a couple other places, that quoted Trump to saying exactly the same thing. Who is this person? I didn't even know. So I get it. Hey, I ran a business. I grew a business very large. A guy can't do everything. You delegate things to your staff. But like you were talking earlier, with Alex Jones, some of the advice that President Trump is getting on foreign policy is putting him in bad positions, and we're concerned about that. And I would say some of the advice that he's getting on some of these endorsements are really creating these endorsements to become watered down, and they really don't hold much value. As a matter of fact, we did a poll on that, and people are they're just not what they used to be, and that's a shame, because for somebody who's been a supporter of President Trump since the day I saw his 60 Minutes interview in 2015 and said, this is our guy, you just hate to see the endorsement process go down like this, where it's really not, you're endorsing people that are, unknowing to the president, it would appear. So with that, we have to really take a hard look at what's going on in our electoral cycles. We got to make sure, I always say, follow the money. Money makes the world go round, but that's unfortunate, but it's true. So we really got to take a hard look. I really recommend everybody to take a look at who is funding what campaign. Look at the finances, look at the PAC money. We got to be astute in being able to understand exactly where these PAC dollars are coming from, because at the end of the day, if you elect dark money, your next congressman is Congressman Dark Money. And you can come up with a candidate that can look really, really good on paper. And frankly, the opponent in my race looks great on paper, almost too good to be true. But except for the fact that really doesn't have much for talking points, doesn't really have a robust platform, and mainly is talking about just his endorsements, which I think we covered.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that even if the guy intends to do good, if he was sent there by deep pockets, those deep pockets are going to want, there's no such thing as a free lunch, no Stoffel, no such thing as a free lunch. They're going to want, their pro quo once he's in office. And it'll be like they were trying to do to Charlie Kirk before he was assassinated. Hey, we gave you millions of dollars. You need to toe the line. And Charlie Kirk is like, well, I'm my own man. I'm not going to be your boy. And I think that's why he was killed. And the same goes for political endorsements and deep pocket money. So I believe Americans should reject, as far as I'm concerned, if a candidate takes any foreign money or takes any large dark money from some PAC somewhere and won't tell you who they are, I don't care how good he looks, you should reject that candidate, because there are going to be strings attached to his back. He'll be a puppet.
Yeah, and I think that's the betrayal that people are feeling. And frankly, that's why I'm running for Congress myself, is because for so many years, I feel like our government, especially during COVID, I was let down. I think a lot of people felt let down. It was just unbelievable. Here in Texas, even, we could have done better. We could have done better to push back on some of this stuff. I'm still seeing people driving around in their cars by themselves and they're wearing a mask. The amount of mental damage that has been done with COVID-19 is unbelievable. We don't even know what it's done to kids who, in their formative years, were conditioned and forced to do all kinds of crazy things. And at the end of the day, it seems as though we were pushed a narrative that you have to take the vaccine, or if you're not a real player, you're not a real American. And the recklessness of the statement is, we find out now that these vaccines, we really don't know the damage long term, because these people were out saying that there's no side effects really. Don't worry about it. Just close your eyes and trust something that's experimental. And now there's a lot of people, my friends included, who did, some of them, take the vaccine because they were forced to in order to keep their football jobs or their coaching jobs and stay with their students. They're saying, just one was out last summer with me on my boat out in Lake Ray Hubbard. They were saying, I feel like a different person. Ever since I did that, I feel I'm not the same person. I'm having issues. And I feel as though there's something going to be really, really significantly wrong with me as I get older. And so he has an emotional issue to live with for the rest of his life. He's like, something invaded my body. It's like I've been almost like sexually assaulted because I have some sort of vaccine inside of me and I can never get it out. And the mental anguish that has happened. And why? Because we didn't have people stand up in leadership positions to defend our people. And I think if anybody's looking for somebody to just be a pawn or a puppet, you're going to find plenty of them. But if you want somebody that's going to be able to challenge the system, you're going to have to look for somebody that's not taking dark money, because that's where your independence is. And across the country, unfortunately, the deck is pretty stacked in favor of dark money because institutions really rule more than the citizens. And we're kind of zoo animals that live in a zoo behind bars that we don't really understand. And we think we're free and we think we have autonomy, but really, we really have very little autonomy. And right now we're comfortable living in a zoo. But Stuart, I just worry a day will come where our zoo is not as comfortable, and we live under a much more harsh reality where these creature comforts that we think we enjoy are taken away, and we go to a social credit system, or we have to submit to environmental climate change rules. And all of a sudden, freedom that we thought we possessed, just like during COVID, it's gone. It's gone, because we saw how quickly freedom left in COVID and how quickly a pandemic just came in and ripped freedom away, where now all of a sudden we had to shut up, we had to put on our masks, we had to stand 6 feet apart, we couldn't be out at bars past 10, we couldn't get our hair cut, we couldn't go, and ladies couldn't get to the grocery store in some cases, and in some states they had to have a vaccine card like we're in Nazi Germany. So
I think
the hand of tyranny has shown itself that it can happen in this country. And because of that, I'm running for Congress, because I'm there, just like my grandfathers who fought in World War II, who gave up their 5 years of their best part of their lives to go fight and protect our country. Because as Ronald Reagan said, we're one generation away from losing freedom.
Absolutely, and that's what the blessing, though, the silver lining is that after COVID, I meet so many people across the country when I speak everywhere that say that COVID was their big red pill moment that woke them up. I think it's more difficult for the bad guys to pull the wool over our eyes anymore. But back to fighting dark money. But the way Ron Paul did it is he got mom and pop donations from all over the country, just like Thomas Massey right now. He's getting donations from all over the country, and Doc Pete Chambers is getting grassroots donations. I know the same is true for you. You're not taking dark money and PAC money. You're getting small mom and pop donations, but like Trump, you're also throwing in your own money. So what I would tell viewers is do not support anyone who's taking foreign money. Don't support anyone who's taking big PAC money. Either need to be independently wealthy, they can do their own thing like President Trump did or like Paul's doing, or they need to be such a firebrand that they're getting donations from like mom and pop donations like Doc Chambers is getting. So that's what you need to look for is someone that's principled, and you should not send anybody to Washington that's not a hardcore constitutionalist. We don't have time to mess around. And so I like to look for someone that is proved up like Doc did when he was working for the Texas National Guard and refused to advise his men to get that experimental shot. He told his men the truth. It's experimental. You're under no duty to take it. You're under, in fact, under the Nuremberg Code, it's illegal for them to experiment on you. And his men would not take it. Only 3 out of like 10,000 men took it. And that's why Doc had to then retire from the Army. But he was willing to do that and take the heat. So look for someone with courage that's willing to take the heat, and that's who you should support. And if you have any doubts about their loyalties, don't support them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say, as angry and just unacceptable that drop boxes, ballot boxes are in blue cities not having voter ID, and those things infuriate me. I would actually submit that after doing some research and looking at things and experiencing some things and connecting dots, I would say that dark money is more of a threat to our republic than anything else, because those
I'd
things
say both, right? I mean, you have to have clean elections, and you shouldn't have hidden puppet masters. We're running out of time. I want to thank Paul for coming on. The last thing I want to say is free Tina Peters. Ivan Raiklin and I have been pounding our table about this. It's ridiculous for President Trump not to just go free her. She's a material witness to the election fraud of 2020 by the state of Colorado, along with others across the country. And President Trump should send the U.S. Marshals and DHS and go rescue her as a material witness and save her life, because the deep state is afraid of her testifying against them. And so I just want to encourage everyone to support her. And pound the table and burn the phone lines up to your representatives and to President Trump and encourage him to take his power in his own hands. But I want to thank Paul for coming on today. And I do wish him luck. He has to get over the hurdle for a runoff. And, God willing, he'll make that hurdle, and then he'll have until May 25th. So good luck to you, Paul, and God bless you, brother.
Stuart, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate it. Everybody, tomorrow is voting day here in Texas. Please turn out. We need to have people represent the elections. We need turnout, and let's crusade against dark money, and let's back our Constitution, and let's keep our country free. So God bless.
Amen. Well said. All right, folks. Hey, it's been an honor to talk to you again with InfoWars. I always love coming on. Alex and his crew are fantastic. I've known them for decades now, and they are the real deal. So God bless you, and be strong. Duty is ours, results are God's.
You need this clear, fast update on Iran right now. Moments that reshape history. Here's what we know. On February 28th, state media reported Ayatollah Khamenei was killed. Iran blamed joint U.S.-Israeli strikes dubbed Operation Epic Fury. The government declared 40 days of national mourning. An interim leadership council is now running day-to-day affairs. Reports say the campaign targeted military and nuclear sites. The strikes caused heavy casualties across multiple areas. There were tragic civilian deaths reported in residential zones. Officials also reported damage to schools and neighborhoods. Some in the diaspora expressed relief at the news. Others warned the strikes risk triggering wider regional conflict. Many condemned the civilian losses and mourned the victims. International experts raised legal and strategic concerns about the operation. Immediate priority: clarify the facts on the ground. Immediate priority: protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. Immediate priority: Open humanitarian corridors for urgent aid. Immediate priority. Push for transparent international monitoring now. The region braces for what comes next.
Now, there are many, many reasons to end the Iranian regime. Take out their nuclear capability, take out their missile building, their terror financing, their entire military. But at the end of the day, I believe President Trump's epic fury is about restoring civilized value and civilized behavior in the Middle East. My friend Conrad Black, writing in the New York Sun, puts it this way. Let me quote. The world's foremost terrorism-sponsoring state is about to cease to exist, and the war on terror that was unofficially launched on September 11th, 2001, in the ashes of the World Trade Center, will substantially be won. Well done. And this is no forever war, as Trump critics keep complaining, but the scale and scope of geopolitical change because of Mr. Trump's courage is almost intellectually immeasurable. While all the Gulf states are behind him, and even the large European nations reluctantly supporting, we have heard nary a peep from China or Russia. They're the big losers in America's epic fury. China will lose its cheap, heavily priced, discounted oil. Russia will lose its Iranian-made drones. Both countries will have lost all of their Middle East influence. Meanwhile, a very similar story of Sino-Russian lost influence is occurring in South America, with Mr. Trump's path-breaking move in Venezuela. And after watching the use of America's military might, I would think China will surely be thinking twice or maybe 5 times more about invading Taiwan. Finally, President Trump issued a very clear message to the people of Iran that a historic moment of freedom is there if they can seize it. Take a listen, please.
Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass.
Yes, yes, indeed. The battle is always about freedom and liberty for mankind. There is nothing more important. Bravo, President Trump.
All right, let's talk about what's breaking and why it matters. Combat operations involving the U.S. and Israel against Iran are ongoing. Officials warn this isn't a single-night strike. More U.S. losses may come. Iranian missiles and drones have hit targets across the region despite interceptions. Here's the take lighting up my inbox. People say this war is the perfect distraction from cleaning up corruption at home. I get it. The timing is wild. Stuart Rhodes, founder of the Oath Keepers. He was sentenced in 2023 to 18 years for seditious conspiracy tied to January 6th. He was later granted clemency after the change in administration and is now out. Plans announced in 2025 to relaunch his group. Today, he's issuing what he calls an emergency warning to the president. Don't let foreign crises knock you off the agenda Americans voted for. Stay focused on domestic accountability. Here's my message to the president and to you. Yes, protect American lives abroad. That's non-negotiable. But also, do not let the fog of war become cover for inaction at home. If there are investigations into abuse of power, censorship, surveillance, misconduct by officials, finish them, transparently, lawfully, on the record. We can hold 2 thoughts at once. National security matters, and so does equal justice under the law. Don't let wait until after the operation become never. Set deadlines. Name responsible officials, publish findings, pursue charges where evidence meets the standard. No exceptions, no favorites. And for everyone watching, be anti-corruption, not anti-people. Demand receipts, not rhetoric. Fact-check emotional claims, especially in wartime. Pressure leaders to multitask. Safeguard troops, safeguard taxpayers, while restoring trust through due process at home. Bottom line, eyes on the horizon and eyes on the books. War should never be a smokescreen. Accountability can't be a casualty. Stay focused, stay loud, stay lawful. Share this, tag your reps, and let me know what evidence-backed priorities you want on the docket. This week, not Sunday.
Britain, and then the United States, and then Israel, and the rest of them are always overthrowing friends of ours over there. Obama did it to Egypt and a couple other countries with the Arab Spring, and putting the radicals in, because when you create Hamas like Israel did, to destabilize Gaza so they never get good leaders that won't fight you. And so they're using the Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King tactic of nonviolence. Israel's like, no, we'll just fund radicals and put them in charge. And this isn't a trick that Israel invented. This has gone on for thousands of years. It's called divide and conquer. But that's the history of the Middle East. So now we have the former Israeli prime minister and a bunch of other leaders in the Knesset, including in Netanyahu's government, saying next, we're going to hit Turkey. And I told you, this isn't going to stop. And now you have Israel admitting, oh, those patches on our soldiers' shoulders that we said were just a joke about greater Israel? No, that's really the plan. And if Israel thinks it can incrementally take over the whole Middle East, it's kind of done a good job of it so far, then have at it. But we shouldn't pay for it. We shouldn't get the terror attacks over it. We shouldn't have to finance it. In case you notice, much of the country's falling apart. So this is Israel literally manipulating, controlling our foreign policy. And then if you say that, Ben Shapiro comes out and says you're anti-Semitic. That doesn't hurt people. You guys have overused that so much that makes people popular. If I put on a Hitler uniform and said, "Heil Hitler," I'd get higher ratings and more support. I don't actually support that, so I'm not going to do that. But my goodness, you're behaving like villains. And this is insane. So it's very paradoxical. You've got the horrible mullahs oppressing their people, torturing, killing thousands every few months. I mean, it just goes on forever. And just all the things and the sponsoring of terror and all the stuff they do, yeah, they're bad. And then if you know the real history of it, the CIA kind of helped them. They didn't put them in, but they helped them get in, overthrow the Shah in 79, and then flip them around, and then they became the new enemy. So they didn't work for the CIA, but they definitely made that deal, and then did Iran-Contra after. Then the CIA double-crossed them a few years later and launched the Iran-Iraq war against them. That's all declassified. Just like they've put the global head of al-Qaeda in charge of Syria. And then now they're talking about, oh, maybe he'll go sideways. We'll have to overthrow him. And this way you set the countries up where every 5-10 years you can overthrow each country over and over again. Like Obama. Remember Arab Spring, overthrowing Egypt, our ally, and all that, and blowing up hundreds of churches and killing tens of thousands and raping American reporters in the streets? Like Laura Logan, 100 men gang raping her? As the Muslim Brotherhood celebrated? So this is a bipartisan thing where the Republicans and the Democrats will back radical Islamicists, whether it's Muslim Brotherhood or whether it's Shiites, to take over. The Middle East 50, 60 years ago played rock and roll. The women wore bikinis. They had beautiful resorts almost everywhere, and they were just as advanced as us. Not now in most areas, because the West funded the cavemen, because they didn't want to have to deal with real governments that would say, hey, this is our oil. You can get half of it, like Mossadegh said in Iran in 53, pro-Western, a modernization guy, anti-radical Islam. They said, no, we'll just have Shiites come overthrow your ass. Then we'll double-cross them and put in the Shah, and now his son, he hadn't been there in 47 years, has run around saying, I'm the king, I'm the king. They've done polls. The people don't want a king. So this is a complete and total mess. Yeah, that's Iran until the mullahs took over. You Iraq was that way. Lebanon was that way. Almost all the Arab nations were like that. So Islam had started to adopt the West, wasn't being expansionist. It was reverting to pre-Islam when some of the most advanced science in the world was where those countries are today. Now you've got inbreeding, mass pedophilia, plunging IQs, psychotic men running around with machine guns in nightgowns, putting their wives and women in beekeeper suits. It is a mess. So I want to go over each piece of this. I want to break it down, the different pitfalls. I don't want to say Trump's mission is failing, and I'm just pragmatically looking at it. I did not support this, do not support it, do not think it was a good idea, but just looking at calling balls and strikes. A lot of people are saying they're going to run out of munitions. It's failed. They wanted regime change. This is a victory for Iran. I wouldn't say that yet. We're a ways away from that. But this is definitely sliding in that direction very, very quickly. I understand Trump's thinking of why I went into Iran. I know a lot of the listeners support it. But was I not right when they hit him 9 months ago and said, oh, we're just doing the nuclear site, that's it, we're done? And I said, no, this is us being set up to then go to a larger war to take out their missiles. That's really regime change. And then when the regime change doesn't happen, because Iran is dug in for 7 years, then what's going to happen? We're going to get fully committed to ground troops. And that's what Eric Prince came out Saturday and said he's concerned about. He said, if they don't remove him right away, then, and that's why he was against this. So, yes, I'd like the mullahs to go bye-bye. And yeah, the polls are clear. There've been a lot of international internal polls, a lot of really sophisticated ones. Between 77, 78% on the low end, 90 plus on the other. So it's in the mid 80s if you average them together. Do not want the mullahs. Well, Congress has a 7% approval rating. The mainstream media has an 8% approval rating. So our government is hated too. Do we get rid of it? And if we got rid of it, these are crooks in our republic, in our system, manipulating it. Notice the left always pushes revolution by getting rid of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, rid of due process, rid of separation of powers. It's not that stuff doesn't work. They're not enforcing it. Now, Trump's approval rating is up a little bit right now. And that normally happens during one of these wars, up 1 point from last week. But you saw that with George W. Bush. He went up like 20 points. And then it was right back down a few months later. What about George Herbert Walker Bush? I remember he had like a 35% approval rating. And by the end of Desert Storm, he had something like an 85% approval rating. And within a few months, it plunged even lower than 35. So we don't want wars just for approval ratings. And look, I don't think Trump did this for approval rating. I don't think Trump did this as a distraction. He said we're not going to let him get nuclear weapons. But we're not going to do regime change. And I've got J.D. Vance and him saying it and Tulsi Gabbard, because I've talked about this and some listeners are like, he never said that. I have the clips. I played some of the clips yesterday. I'm not going to play them again. It's on record. We know what they said. I instead of playing the clips, I have transcripts here. That could be quicker. Oh, I guess I'll play the clips and prove I'm right. I just have to. Sorry. I know most of you are like, we know we don't need to see the clips. But at a certain point, I want to hit people with the truth here. So we were lied to. And my concern is, Eric Prince's concern, ground troops. And it'll be, well, we need to secure just the coastline by the Strait of Hormuz. And then it expands and expands and expands and expands. And now it's, 4 to 5 weeks. Remember, just stay in your home for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And 2 years later, we're fighting to open the country back up. So that's my concern. If Trump could hit a button and send the mullahs to the phantom zone, like in Superman where they send the bad guys, to another dimension, I'd hit the button. Trump won't rule out sending U.S. troops into Iran if necessary. Tells the Post war is progressing way ahead of schedule. Trump said we obliterated Iran's nuclear program last June, so why are we about to go to war? Yeah, that was a few days ago, and now here we are. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. You say you're going to release the Epstein list, then you try to block it, even though you're not in it. We already knew that, and it's all Democrats. It's just like, we're not in a cult. That said, I'm not taking my ball and going home and just saying I'm not going to vote Republican. I'm not going to vote in the midterms. I'm not going to support Tulsi Gabbard or RFK Jr. or Tom Homan and the great work they're doing. It's just so sad and dangerous to see Trump going in this direction. And because the Democrats want nuclear war with Russia, I'm not, and Trump's been trying to end that and doing a great job. That's way more dangerous than even Iran. So you want to measure things, be pragmatic. I'm not going to desert Trump because he's doing this Iran thing. I'm going to criticize it and try to get him to listen. And because if the Democrats get in, it's nuclear war with Russia. So let's balance that here. I'm trying to work with what we got here, folks. All right, everybody knows what I do. I look at what Trump does. I look at what Orban does. I study each country, and I look at what the populist movement is and who are the most pro-human, most anti-globalist, and then I support that group. And that's so simple. And then I'll support other groups that are even more hardcore patriots to try to get them ready to go. We were instrumental back when UKIP had basically no supporters, and I was number one on the internet in the UK. Nigel Farage has said this, in energizing them to actually get their whole Brexit moving going. And that got shot down, but still it built the larger populist movement in Europe now being emulated. So just because Ron Paul didn't get elected president, that set the platform for Trump to come in. And it's been night and day compared to the Democrats, though it's not been perfect. Now we build a bigger foundation for the new generation of leaders. But I'll tell the Trump family this and the rest of them, and I think they're overall good people. Your father is destroying the MAGA legacy. And we're going to continue on as nationalists and populists and Christians and free market folks and anti-globalists. We built this movement, but this Iran attack and this behavior at the behest of Israel and the fact that it's now expanding as experts warned it would and as I warned is a shit-the-bed moment. And I'm going to tell all the hawks out there that are great listeners and smart and call in and make great points last week, and I respected your points. I said, when they did the strikes last year, and only said it was about the nuclear program, I said, you watch, in 6 months to a year, we're going to say we're taking out all their missiles, and we're taking out their Navy, and oh, we hope they overthrow them, and oh, well, we're just going to keep bombing until they're overthrown. And now Trump has told the New York Post he does not rule out sending ground troops. Trump won't rule out sending U.S. troops into Iran if necessary, tells the Post war is progressing way ahead of schedule. Really, they had Trump surrogates out the last month saying, the mullahs might fall in a day if we just decapitate them. Well, he just killed half their generals and the supreme leader, and the people under him are even more radical. So I don't see that happening. And I hope I'm wrong. President Trump told the Post today that he's not ruling out sending U.S. ground troops into Iran if they're necessary, adding that Operation Epic Fury was way ahead of schedule by taking out dozens of Tehran's top officials. Oh, I thought it was to get the missiles and the nukes. Oh, now it's take out their officials. Yeah, it's overthrow them. So just be honest about it. It's going to go pretty quickly. He said we're right on schedule, way ahead of schedule in terms of leadership. 49 killed, and that was, going to take, we figured, at least 4 weeks, and we did it in one day. That's why they launched the day early and during the day, not at night, because they were all in one building, which is, have you guys heard of Zoom, you dummies? But the U.S. always hits at night, and so that's why I predicted they would hit on Saturday at about 6 o'clock Texas time, because that's in the middle of the night, Iran time. And the generals went on Fox and said, well, they were going to hit about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock U.S. time, but they decided to go ahead and hit early on Friday because the mullahs and the military all went into the Supreme Leader's command base in the morning, And Israel was close enough to hit them within an hour and a half. So Israel hit them, dropped 30 big bombs on them, and killed everybody. In fact, I sent you guys the B-roll of this. It's in the list. I sent too much. There was live feeds going out. The equivalent of Iran's, ring systems inside the base, and you see all the different areas being blown up with people at their computers, at their stations. It's unbelievable footage. So we'll get to that. But I want to open the phones up if you disagree with me and think, hey, ground troops is great, or let's go all the way no matter what. I'd love to hear from you. If you think I'm right, or maybe I'm not going far enough on Trump, maybe you agree with Nick Fuentes that he's just completely done with the Republican Party, period. Okay, then the Democrats want nuclear war with the Russians. I mean, you've got to balance this stuff out. Bitch at the bad stuff Trump does, support the good stuff he does. But I will say that Trump went from being 98% what I thought he should be doing with Doge and all of it. And about 4 or 5 months of the administration, it started sliding off, basically dead on perfect to veering off. And now he's veering really fast. Soon, he'll be, a 180 on what he was if it continues down this line. So I've got serious concerns. But then how do you even pragmatically then go, okay, well, then I'll just support the Democrats? I guess I've been trying to fix this peacefully. The Democrats should totally open the borders, continue the human trafficking. They're going to start a nuclear war. But I also don't want to be trapped here, just sitting here with the Republicans. I mean, 90+% of the American people, it's 95% of Republicans, something like 70-some% of Americans in polls want voter ID to vote. You can't even get the Republicans to frickin' pass the bill or bring the bill up for a vote. The SAVE Act. I mean, it's so frustrating. But we're moving the needle towards liberty a lot faster than we used to. So I also want to be thankful and again, not one instant gratification. But that doesn't mean I just sit here and take it. What do you think? Toll-free number to join us, 877-789-2539, 877-789-2539, 877-789-ALEX. What is your take on Trump saying, oh, I'm ready to send in ground troops. Oh, at least 4 or 5 more weeks. Oh, this is going so splendidly. So it goes from camel's nose under the tent flap, oh, we're just going to take out their nukes, to, oh, we're just going to take out their missiles and ships, to, oh, this mission is to kill their leadership and have regime change. Well, under U.S. law and international law, that's illegal on its face. And so at certain levels, I like Trump going in on Maduro. I think he had the constitutional authority to do that. But still, what comes out of that fiasco, we don't know yet. Cuba's about to fall. Cuba's next, I think. I'm not going to cry my Cheerios about that. But look at how in Venezuela they've left the vice president communist in there. I mean, when Cuba falls, will we make a deal with them and leave communists in charge? This is just wild.
This is why you need Brandon Weichert on X. Chaos on the ground, questions in the answers. How long will it last? U.S.-Israeli strikes reportedly killed Iran's supreme leader. Tehran has launched missile and drone strikes across the Gulf, and casualties are mounting on all sides. President Trump called this a 4-week campaign, but Brandon Weichert warns of a dangerous fog of war. Friendly fire shootdowns and regional spillover already complicate plans. Markets and airlines are jittery. Iran has a temporary leadership council and satellite links could change the battlefield. Bottom line, 4 weeks is optimistic. Expect a messy, unpredictable fight. Follow Brandon Weichert on X or WeatherBrandon for ongoing analysis.
I'm very happy to welcome my guest, Brandon Weichert. You can follow him on X at @WeTheBrandon. His book is called The Shadow War, Iran's Quest for Supremacy. He's a geopolitical analyst and founder of the Weichert Report, World News Done Right, guided by Herman Kahn's motto against fashionable thinking. And again, you can follow him on X at @WeTheBrandon. He's one of my favorite follows. Brandon, how are you, sir?
I am trying to survive the so-called golden age. I don't know about you.
Doesn't feel so golden to me, man. It's been a while. It feels like every time we talk, it was always like, all right, is it going to happen? When's it going to happen? It seems like it's going to happen. Well, it's happened, Brandon. It's happened. We are now at war with Iran. How are you taking this?
We have always been at war with Iran. This is where we are right now. Basically, to me, I am anticipating ground troops to be deployed within the next several weeks. I don't think the air war is going anywhere near as well as they're claiming. Then again, though, I don't believe anything anymore the government tells me. We've certainly degraded a lot of things in Iran. The Israelis in particular have killed a bunch of their leaders, as you noted at the top of the hour, notably the Ayatollah. But the Ayatollah wasn't important. He was a symbolic head, but he wasn't actually running the regime. Now, we have killed, or the Israelis have killed, a lot of IRGC commanders who were running things. But apparently, a country of 96 million people or so has more people to promote. So, their regime survives, and I'll just say this: there's a mismatch in objectives here. Our objectives are way too many. For one, you've got 3 objectives here: regime change, ending the nuclear weapons program in Iran, and the ballistic missile systems they want gone. We do. The Iranian goal: they just have to survive. They have to hang on long enough for our air defense interceptors and our offensive missile systems in the CENTCOM area of responsibility, AOR, to be depleted. And according to many reports that I've read and people that I've talked to, former Missile Defense Agency people and whatnot, the report that I'm getting is that before the war began, Trump was told there's only about 8 days worth of stockpiles in the Middle East for a high-tempo war of the kind we're currently fighting. We're going into day 4. So if those numbers are accurate at all, in the next week, we're going to be running low, and they're going to have to pull stockpiles then from the Indo-PACOM area, which means we're going to be draining our defenses against China to fight Israel. To fight our war against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And there's no doubt that the Iranians are not our friends. There's no doubt about that. But this was not a pressing issue. The decision to go to war was not based on any imminent threat. And the Pentagon today, in that press conference with Hegseth and General Kane, confirmed that there was no intelligence suggesting that they were 2 weeks away from a nuclear breakout.
Or any sort of threat against us, if I remember correctly. How do you even wrap your mind around what's going? Because there's so much conflicting information. AI videos make everything complicated now. I'm basically clicking the Grok button on every video I see, just going, is this AI? It's almost automatically have a tag at this point.
I got burned the other day. I posted something that I thought was from Haifa, and then I double-checked, and I was like, oh, AI. Yeah.
So there's all that mis and disinformation, and then there's just like what you're seeing. I'm seeing a ton of video of Tel Aviv getting hit and American bases getting hit. My feed doesn't have a lot of Iranian, damage being done to Iran, but I'm seeing that also. It seems to me like things. My just bird's eye view interpretation is, all right, it looks like things are not going as smoothly as maybe they hoped, and it seems like Trump expected this to almost be a repeat of Venezuela, and since it's not. The rumors and sort of the signals are like people in the Pentagon are like, we don't actually know what we're doing here. But then like you got the Tel Aviv stock market reaching extra, the highest it's ever reached. So I'm like, all right, what is the situation? How do you even get a handle on what's real at this point?
Well, at this point, what I would recommend to everybody is the next probably 48 hours are going to be key for determining whether or not Iran is still in the fight truly, or if what we're witnessing is the last gasp of a truly dying regime. I am leaning toward the fact that the Iranians still have some fight in them, although other military experts are telling me that I'm crazy. But to me, I think the Iranians have planned for this very well, and they've been hit hard, but they're still fighting. In terms of what to expect, I actually think that the president thought once he got rid of Khamenei, the Ayatollah, that the whole system would implode and it would be sort of like we could do what we did with Maduro. And I think he is now waking up to the fact that this is not, and I said this to people near the administration, I was warning for weeks, Iran is not Venezuela in any way. And, here we are. The Iranian regime has been under attack for 46 years. They've been attacking us. We've been attacking them. They've been attacking Israel, etc. So they have had time to prepare. And so far, their preparations look to be, I wouldn't say perfect, but again, their only objective is regime survival until they think we run out of missiles and air defense interceptors. And that's coming up real soon. And then they can go ham with their own long-range ballistic missiles, which they have thousands of. We're trying to take out their missile cities underground. That's what those B-2 strikes over the weekend were about, with 2,000-pound bombs. I'm not convinced those strikes were successful any more than I wasn't convinced, and I was right, that the strikes against the nuclear facilities last year were effective.
Here's a question for you. What do you think the casualty list really looks like right now? I mean, all we've seen is that 4 jets were shot down in friendly fire. I mean, as far as I can tell, that's sort of the only confirmed casualties that America is admitting yet. You've got Iran saying, actually, we think hundreds of American servicemen have killed. I can't help but see some of the attacks on the hotels or the bases in Bahrain and go, if anybody was in that building, they're dead. What do you think the casualty list looks like on both sides right now?
I do think we've killed quite a bit of Iranian leaders. I'm sure, and I've seen some battle damage in Tehran. It looks pretty apocalyptic. Looks pretty apocalyptic in parts of Tel Aviv too. I have people that have been sending me things, and they're not allowed to send them, so I can't share them. But I have seen things out of Tel Aviv, even out of parts of Jerusalem that are that look pretty bad for the Israelis. In terms of our casualties, I'm going to just stick, and the only reason I say this is because when you start speculating, then the OSINT crowd comes after you, and then you get smeared as an Iranian apologist or whatever. I'm going to say that the last CENTCOM report I saw about an hour ago today was that 6 service members have been killed. Many more wounded. I don't remember the number of wounded, but the number is increasing almost geometrically. Now, that's the official narrative. My theory, I'm just sort of speculating here, is I'm wondering if the administration is sort of slow walking the release of real casualty figures because they don't want it to seem like it's this bad. It is very clear to me, having been around Trump, having watched him from afar rise, having been on, multiple events and meeting him and many of his advisors. I know many of his Pentagon advisors very well. I get a sense that they are taken aback by the fact that the Iranians have been able to sustain any kind of operational tempo. And in fact, the Iranians are actually increasing their missile attacks on the region. Now, maybe it all fizzles in 2 days, and that's the hope. Sort of like the cancer patient gets a burst of energy right before he dies. Yeah. But, the Iranians, like I said, have had time to prepare. And I really do think it's already become a regional war, Harrison. I think it's about to become a world war. We've already seen the French are getting involved. The British are now, despite their protestations, they are now engaging in air defense operations with their jets over Oman. This is very much a global conflict. And with the Strait of Hormuz shut down now, this is becoming an oil war as much as anything else.
And the Strait of Hormuz, I want to get into that too, because that's an interesting wrinkle to this because of how much more damaging it is to Europe and China than us to shut down that strait. But obviously, it's going to affect the oil prices the world over. Yeah. Do you have any confirmation one way or the other about strikes on the USS Lincoln? Because this is another rumor I was hearing, but cannot confirm to my own satisfaction whether or not it's true.
So I know that the 4 ballistic missiles are what the official narrative is that were fired after Khamenei's death was confirmed at the Abraham Lincoln, the Nimitz-class carrier operating in the North Arabian Sea. The CENTCOM is claiming that it never came within, reach. But we saw during the Houthi battle a year ago or 2 years ago almost, the U.S. carriers are very vulnerable to these anti-ship ballistic missiles. So I'm convinced, and the number that was sent, only 4. My assumption on that is I think the Iranians were sending a message more than anything to Washington, D.C. We can really F you up if you really keep at it. Now, an interesting story, and it's been 2 days. I've been trying to get it confirmed. I can't. but there was a missing submarine, Iranian submarine. Now, we've done a very good job of knocking out the Iranian Navy. There was one Fatah class air-independent propulsion-powered diesel-electric submarine that was missing from its home port when we began the attack. The assumption was that she was underway and she was on the prowl. And the reason I say this is even though it's an old system, the AIP is an old system compared to what we've got. For 25 years in NATO war games, European diesel-electric submarines have been able to simulate successfully sinking U.S. carriers because the way that their engines operate, they're quieter and they're harder to detect for the carrier's battle group. And if the carrier had been under sustained anti-ship ballistic missile attack and drone attack at the same time, that Fatah class in theory could have gotten within torpedo range and had a successful shot. Now, what I was told is, and I've not been able to confirm this, but what I was told is that Fatah class submarine did, in fact, around the time those 4 ballistic missiles were fired at the carrier, did get very near to the carrier, attempted to fire torpedoes at it, but one of our assets was able to detect it and sank it before it could pop off the torpedoes at the carrier. But this is a very hot environment, and I would just remind your audience, for all the rah-rah about the carriers, they are still operating outside the range of many of these Iranian weapons, which indicates to me the Pentagon is very much worried about what kind of capabilities Iran still has.
That's what it seems like to me as well. And of course, again, the base is getting struck so thoroughly, but no reports of casualties makes me think that the Americans must have gotten underground or, just gotten out of the range of the missiles before it hit, or they're lying to us about the casualty list. But it's got to be one of those or the other. Man, there's just there's so many places to go with this, Brandon. Where do you want to go with this? Because I can ask about Russia is making threats now. Just the let me ask you this: is the confusion in the messaging? Do you think that is strictly because the messaging is confused, or do you think that hints to of actual confusion in the strategic discussions that are going on? I can't tell whether they just don't have their messaging right, so it looks convoluted, or whether this is representative of a disordered set of minds trying to figure this out. Do you have any inclination one way or the other?
I think they are very surprised by how effective the Iranian resistance has been thus far.
Okay.
Again, the Iranians have been hit. They've been hit very hard. And, for the sake of our people, I'm hopeful that we win this thing quickly. But, I have to put my analytical hat on. And, Trump is normally a very savvy media guy. If anything else, he is very good about managing the media. But this has been one of the worst examples of media mismanagement. And I'm just kind of surprised, just given his background and his talent for media management, that this has gone off so badly, the messaging. And the only thing I can think of is he was told and he assumed one thing in terms of an outcome, this being quick like Maduro. And now he's waking up on day 4, going into day 4, and there's no resolution to this thing, which indicates to me that things are worse than we're realizing. And I also want to point out something to your audience, Harrison. That press conference today with Hegseth and General Kane, they completely, particularly the military, the uniformed military, Kane, is clearly trying to distance the Pentagon from this war. Kane has repeatedly come out and said and voiced concern about this operation, or he's done it indirectly through leaks. He has repeatedly now said that, we didn't have intelligence of an imminent threat. Well, that contradicts what the president said this last weekend. And then Hegseth himself said this is not a regime change war, but that also completely contradicts what the president said Saturday and again 48 hours ago about this issue. And what that indicates to me, Harrison, is that there's real legal and political concern within the Pentagon, and they are now trying to distance themselves from what they think is going to become a very pear-shaped operation very soon if this continues beyond a week.
Do you know if there's any legitimacy to the claims that Trump wanted a ceasefire and that Iran rejected them?
I believe that is accurate. So what happened was around the time the attacks or the threats to the carrier began, I was told, and again, this is all hearsay, but I was told that the president became kind of wigged out at the what was going on with the Abraham Lincoln, the carrier, and he immediately called And basically the Iranians didn't pick up. And the Iranians are not interested in talking. To be fair, we've killed quite a few people in the Iranian leadership, so there might not have been people to talk to. But interestingly, also in his weird late night discourse with Jonathan Karl of ABC, the president apparently said that the leader that we wanted to work with within the Iranian Revolutionary Guard was also killed in the initial strikes. Well, who was doing the initial strikes were the Israelis. The Israelis, this is not widely reported. The first day of strikes were widely done by the Israelis at standoff ranges. We were doing sort of electronic warfare methodology, but it was the Israelis, which indicates to me that the Israelis do not want a stable government forming in the aftermath of whatever happens militarily.
Right, and of course that sort of makes sense with everything else that we've seen so far. And was that, again, a lot of this is speculation. Everything that we're saying now, you sort of have to take with a grain of salt, and hopefully, more clarity will come later. But, I think you have better sources than just about anybody else. What
for now? Well, they're going to freeze me out eventually.
That's all right. We'll get you on as much as possible until then. But, I mean, just where does this go from here? What is the goal? I mean, again, I'm just sort of torn because you see Trump and he seems confident and he's like, yeah, this is fine. We're ahead of schedule. And it's like, I don't think we are, dude. But again, he
doesn't seem confident to me, actually. Like I said, I've I know a lot of people around him. I've interacted with him. I've followed him for a decade now in politics very closely. He does not seem very confident. He seems defensive at times. He seems he seems almost kind of bored. That's kind of the look on his face, is one of boredom at times and sort of nonchalance, almost like, yeah, I'm having to do this. Like Marco and Susie made me do this,
right?
So I'm doing this for them and for Netanyahu because he owes me a lot of money, that's sort of the takeaway I have, is that this is not really Trump's grand initiative. I think he's sort of going along with it because he feels he has to. If it works out, then he gets to say, hey, look at all the success I've had. But I think he's waking up to the fact that this thing is not going to be over. Now he's talking about 4 to 5 weeks. And to be fair, from the beginning, the administration always said that they're planning for a 4-week war. But, with those stockpile issues, I can't imagine that Trump and his military leaders really thought this would go that long. And furthermore, you look at what's going on with Trump and you say, well, this guy is going to be facing a recession, because you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz. It went a 6% price increase today, which is only a few dollars right now. And the market's closed on Friday around $73 per barrel. But now, that's going to now increase, and we're going to be inching closer to 80 to 90 dollars per barrel. This thing lasts for 3 weeks. The assessment is in 3 weeks, we will be, if it continues as it is, with the Straits of Hormuz being interdicted the way they are, we will be staring at $120 per barrel minimum oil. And that means that you and I are going to be paying significantly more. And $120 or higher in oil at this time in the economy equals recession right in time for the midterm elections. And if he loses those midterms, he will be impeached no matter what. The Democrats will not drop this, especially because now the Democrats are claiming that Rubio in the last Gang of Eight meeting lied to them and held back intelligence so that he could get a favorable opinion from them on striking Iran. And if that can be proven, then you've got a huge problem on your hand politically and legally for Trump and his team.
I was going to say, hell, Trump might be impeached, before the midterms by how unpopular this war is being.
Well, I don't think the Republicans are going to do that to him in the Congress. He's got they're pretty simpatico. Plus, they all want this to happen anyway. But once they lose those majorities, Harrison, it's a whole new political reality for us, and the golden age becomes a golden fizzle.
That's true. I just think I think whoever figures out that impeachment, over the Iran war is popular is going to do it, and everybody else is going to jump on.
It'll probably be Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey. I think the two of them will gang up on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that. And part of the whole confusion and convoluted messaging is that Americans don't support this war. We haven't been given a reason to. No. So, I think the latest I saw
he didn't even try to lie to us the way George W. Bush did.
That's what I mean. It's like. At least give us something to sink our teeth into, but there's like, no, we're just doing it. It is so crazy, and
that's the tell. By the way, he thought it would be quicker than it was.
I think so too. I think he expected this to be another Venezuela. He thought, all these doubters are whining and crying, but by Monday they'll see, and I'll be able to tout this as a success. And I think he was just lied to. I have to assume that he's been lied to.
He should fire every single White House national security person. Right now, he needs to clean house and he needs to get rid of Susie, and he needs to probably put Rubio back in Foggy Bottom and get him out of the White House.
Yeah, this is it. It is such a disaster, and it's sad because it's entirely of his own making. And then you have satellite images revealing aftermath of drone attack on Saudi Arabia's biggest refinery. So, it's not just the Strait of Hormuz blocking the flow to oil, mostly to Europe and China. It's going to be our suppliers here as well, and there's no sign of anything slowing down. Again, the fact that he's reported to have asked for a ceasefire and that Iran denied means they at least think it's going well. More with Brandon Weichert on the other side. So much more to get into, folks. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is The War Room. I'm your host, Harrison Smith. My guest is Brandon J. Weichert. You can follow him at WeTheBrandon on X. He's the founder of the Weichert Report, World News Done Right. And again, you can follow him at WeTheBrandon, and I encourage you to do so. Brandon, I'm not sure if you've seen this, but Secretary Rubio, a little less than an hour ago, made a statement about Israel and America and who decided to attack first. I'd love to go to this clip and get your response to it. Here's Marco Rubio less than an hour ago. Brandon Weichert commenting on the other side. Let's watch.
The United States conducted this operation with a very clear goal in mind. I haven't got a chance to see a lot of reporting. I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible. Perhaps you'll report it that way. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true because, in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Whoa, okay. That was Secretary of State Marco Rubio essentially admitting that we had to attack because Israel attacked, and if Israel attacks, Iran's going to attack us. That was kind of mind-blowing. Is that the message you just got? I feel like I just heard Secretary Rubio blame this on Israel.
Yeah, well, but like I said, they're all scrambling now. This is how you know they're all in CYA mode. I remember living and working in D.C. well. I can tell when they're flailing. I have advised people when they're in this position, and this is exactly what you do. He is blame shifting. He also said something very interesting. He's admitting now that it was a preemptive war. Well, I can guarantee you, again, if the Democrats take over, this is going to be the mother of all congressional investigations now, and I hope he's got a good attorney, because this thing is going to be an ever widening investigation into the intelligence behind the war. And I don't believe for a second that this was a preemptive strike at all. I think that is a bold-faced lie. Now, what you're saying about the Israelis is very interesting, because, as I said, at the first day, the attack was conducted predominantly by the Israelis. But the United States provided critical electronic warfare assistance. We provided intelligence. We provided targeting intelligence to the Israelis. And furthermore, we deployed a picket of F-22 Raptors from one of our Middle East bases, and they provided suppression of enemy air defenses, SEAD capabilities for the Israeli systems that were being deployed against Iran on that first day. So he can say what he wants about, oh, the Israelis initiated, and they probably did. But this was done in very close coordination with the administration. This was executed according to a pre-designed plan. And now what they're doing is they're trying to blame shift, because I think Rubio, who's very savvy politically, understands, as does Hegseth and Kane and the rest of them, that, this thing's going breasts up very quickly. And they need to have cover stories, and they need to have deflection narratives. Because if it is allowed to fester and the Democrats do take power, Harrison, these guys are cooked. There will be impeachments. There will be investigations that will basically end their political careers right now.
I mean, this is sort of uncharted water as far as the American regime is concerned, the American government is concerned, because, I mean, to blame Israel like that, like, it seems like this could almost lead to, the American people demanding that we not be allies with Israel anymore. If we just, I mean, again, I'm walking away with this, having just heard Marco Rubio basically say Israel attacked, and so we had to. So, I mean, this has been such a disaster so far of messaging and everything. If it gets worse, it sounds like he's laying the blame at the feet of the Israelis, and that would...
He is.
So,
he is.
This could open up the door to actually...
I had a source tell me about that school strike, by the way, and this is all starting to make sense now. I had a source tell me from the Pentagon, insist to me that the school that was destroyed in Iran was not done by U.S. bombs. It was done by Israel. And so now, of course, I have no way of confirming that. This is all sort of, background. But there definitely seems to be narrative building here. Again, this strike doesn't happen. Yes, the Israelis probably went first. This strike doesn't happen without very close-in support and intelligence sharing from us. So the notion that, America didn't have anything to do with it, we were just kind of dragged along, that's I don't buy that for a second. This was determined.
I don't buy it either. It's just the fact that they would even hint at that.
Because
that's the interesting part, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, clearly, look, clearly this is not going as well as they thought it would. And, maybe they can pull it out of the fire. Maybe the Iranians are more wounded than we're realizing. We'll find out, like I said, in 48 hours. That's going to be the real key window. But for now, clearly it's not going well. They can't get their story straight. People don't remember the Friday. So 3:38 p.m. last Friday was supposedly when Kane received the order to initiate airstrikes for that Saturday. What happened around that time was the leak from Vice Admiral Fred Kocher, who was the director of the Joint Staff for the Joint the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It's basically, he was an underling of Kane, and he leaked to the press this very contentious meeting that Kane had with Trump, in which Kane basically outlined all the reasons you should not attack Iran the way you're planning to, Mr. President. Trump didn't listen, and so shortly after, Kocher released that information in a leak. Now, the big question in the Pentagon has been, was this Kocher acting on his own, or was he doing it because Kane asked him to do it? And I believe Kane asked him to do it, which means you have within the military, uniformed military, there is a very deep aversion to what the president is ordering them to do, because they understand the logistics, they understand the supply chain, they understand the weaknesses in the defense industrial base, and the president, for whatever reason, is just deadlocked on this Iran war. And he's locked in harder, I think, even than George W. Bush was on Iraq.
Truly. I mean, you talk about uncharted territory. It's like everything about this. And it's been this way for a while. I mean, obviously, I think this is tied up in the Epstein stuff as well. And that's another example of just like what is happening? How did everybody switch sides all of a sudden? It's also baffling. And like,
it's a big club and we're not in it.
Yeah, but apparently not. But like, this is another headline that I'm just like, what world are we in? How did things go so wrong so bad? So fast. UAE and Qatar urge allies to help Trump find off-ramp in Iran. So it's just from Bloomberg. Yeah, so Bloomberg has this story. The United Arab Emirates and Qatar are privately lobbying allies to help them persuade Donald Trump to reach for an off-ramp that would keep U.S. military operations against Iran short, according to people familiar with the matter. So again, we're like 72 hours into this conflict, and apparently our allies are like, please, how do we get Trump to stop? Crazy.
I like to think of Trump and Netanyahu as like Thelma and Louise going in the car, holding hands off the cliff, everybody screaming at them, please stop.
Only we're all tied to their back bumper. That's the issue.
That's right. Kurt Mills is texting me saying calamity is building. So, I mean, I'm sure something just happened that's horrific because the golden age never stops.
Wow.
So, but no, the Middle East is the tragedy here is that last year Donald Trump went to the Middle East and he effected an incredible geoeconomic coup in which he basically, there we go, you got a great team there, in which he basically effected a geoeconomic coup, and he empowered the Arab states to stand up in closer trade relations with the United States on things like AI and advanced manufacturing. It's hard to believe a year ago this is the same president, because that was the famous Riyadh speech he gave last year in which he said commerce over conflict.
Yeah, that was an amazing speech.
It was. And now here we are a year later, and he's basically shredded that. And he is now all in on the Israeli Greater Project or Greater Israel Project. And, this thing is gonna bleed America dry. We're going to lose those stockpiles. And if you note, Harrison, the geopolitical impact of this that's not being widely reported, we are phasing our presence out of these Arab states because of the threat. Right. So for those Arab states who are dependent on the U.S. having some presence or foothold in their country for security purposes, well, no matter what, we're pulling out because we can't protect our bases anymore. So this is a sea change. Even if we, quote, win in Iran, which I'm hopeful we do because I'm pro-America, but even if we do, the geopolitical landscape in the region is going to be so fundamentally different. It will be wide open for the Chinese and Russians to come in and scoop up that part of the world, and you know what? They can have it, but ultimately, this is one of the most thoughtless endeavors I have ever seen. I've never seen the country this blasé about a major war.
It really defies explanation. Like it is, and part of me is like, I don't know, grasping for straws and going, maybe this is the only way to get out of the Middle East for America. Maybe, you know,
that would be the silver lining. That would be the silver lining.
The silver lining, yeah, whether intentional or not, it's kind of like, you know, when I saw it was like, USS Abraham Lincoln, leaves the area after getting hit by missiles. I'm like, good, we should leave. Yes, we should leave immediately. Right. Now is the time to go. Things are a little hot around here. We're going to step off for a little bit.
You're it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just go. It's going to settle down. We'll be back in a few years. You guys handle this. So the Gulf countries, again, they're having sort of a weird response. I don't know if you want to get into that, and then the proxies as well. But Gulf countries first. What is their response to being attacked?
Well, you have to understand the Gulf countries, contrary to what Israel says about these Gulf countries, they are totally in bed with the United States and Israel. In fact, Saudi Arabia might have been working with Israel on 9/11. Anyway, though, I don't want to get into that here. But they're totally in bed with the U.S. and Israel. So this notion that these governments are hostile to Israel is ridiculous. They are not. But the people are different from their government. And the people are irate at the United States now because, hey, their economy is their lifeblood, and it's being annihilated by these Iranian missiles. Whether the Iranians are going away or not is irrelevant to the average, person in Qatar or Bahrain and the thing about Bahrain is they're overwhelmingly Shiite Muslims. Right. So you would think that and they're still everybody's angry at us. because their entire economic model is being destroyed by our foreign policy. And this is going to destabilize the region for years. And if this conflict continues, you might see the fall of Arab regimes that are close to the United States. And remember, a lot of these populations are Islamist. So they might get replaced by Al-Qaeda types.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's just, yeah, so these are sirens. So, I mean, it's still going on to a massive degree. I thought maybe that they had just bombed Cyprus. This happened a little while ago, but
that was what they threatened. They threatened to do it this morning. They might have actually done it.
I think they did. Europe very likely to get dragged into conflict after UK base in Cyprus hit. So apparently they're blaming Hezbollah for hitting the base in Cyprus, because basically American armaments went to stage in Cyprus, and so Iran
we had
said,
to flee.
We'll find you there.
We had to flee. I mean, this is the unsung story here, is we've had to flee from the region. Operating out of Cyprus is not a normal thing for the U.S. military and the CENTCOM AOR. This is it's because we are having to withdraw and create a fortress for ourselves over the horizon, and it's not enough, obviously. So that indicates to me that the Iranians have still got quite a lot of fight in them, and it's probably why Rubio is flailing, on the steps of Capitol Hill. That's probably why the Hegseth and Kane are countermanding what the president is saying in public, and the president seems kind of ambivalent to the whole event. This is a very big crisis, and it's going to blow up very soon into what I think will be in my book, The Shadow War, I said a war with Iran will initiate a world war.
Right.
And it looks like we are on the track for that. And I don't see any off-ramp here. The Iranians are fanatics anyway, that regime. So you're putting a fanatic in a corner. It's probably not the best place to put them.
A very well-armed fanatic.
A very well-armed fanatic, right? Exactly. And then they seal off the Strait of Hormuz. You've got the Houthis sealing off the Strait of Bab el Mandeb. You've got the Houthis going after the Red Sea. You talked about targeting those refineries. Who knows who did it? But the end result is this is creating so much volatility in the global oil market that it's going to spike the price. And if this continues over the long run, which I suspect it will spike the price severely and possibly lead to a recession here in the United States. Meanwhile, in China, now China is very important here because we are told by the administration's apologists that this is great. Venezuela was an oil source for China, and so is Iran, and we're taking away their oil sources, and it's going to be the end of their economy. Well, to be clear, China only got around 4% of their oil from Venezuela. They got about 14 to 15% of their oil from Iran. However, in the last several weeks, the Chinese had started shifting their purchases of energy products from Iran to Russia, Saudi Arabia, and I believe Qatar. And in fact, in the last 3 weeks, the largest amount of Chinese purchases of Saudi oil, probably in a year, were conducted because they knew this strike was coming on Iran and they'd be cut off. So the Chinese, like the Iranians, have been, and like the Russians, have been hardening their regime and their economy to maybe not prosper during this time, but certainly to survive. And survival for these regimes is key because then they can rebuild from there. And they know they can outlast the Americans because we have a very short attention span and clearly a short logistics tail.
Yeah, and so that's interesting. So, because the latest I'd heard, or I was just using AI to research, and it was saying like 50% of China's oil resources, and that may have been a particular type of oil that they got from Iran.
It might be talking generally about the Middle East because they get a lot of stuff from the Middle East. And I don't know what the combined percentage is. It's not just Iran, it's Saudi Arabia, it's Qatar. I think there's another Middle East country they get it from. But remember, I would say 70 to 80% of their oil comes from next door in Russia.
Right.
And, that's a huge stopgap. And now that the Indians are no longer directly purchasing the extra Russian oil because of America's pressure on India, well, the Russians are just transshipping that oil that was bound for India, and they're just dumping it off in China. And the Chinese are very happy to have that. And
yes. So like the Zero Hedge article hints, this was one of the things people are speculating about, going, well, this may look bad, but it's hurting China the most, and this is all about going after China. But you're saying that China was pretty aware of this, and it's not really hurting them as much as it would be.
I mean, it probably is hurting them. I'm not going to say they're not being hurt, but I don't think this is the collapse.
Right.
So there is this collapse narrative that has really been kicking around for 25 years in Washington, D.C., and these sort of empty heads of the think tank crew, and they've been consistently wrong. China's not going to collapse. They're the second largest economy GDP-wise. They're the first largest economy in purchasing power parity. They are integrated fully into the world economy in the ways that the Soviet Union never was during the Cold War. Furthermore, they are the world's sweatshop turned world's high-end workshop. So, there is no future in which China collapses anytime soon. And if it did, it's going to take us down with it.
Yeah, well, it's also the world's medicine chest, and glyphosate producers. So I mean,
and we get a lot of our arms. By the way, the Raytheon CEO during the Biden administration said it's insane to pick a fight with a country like China because 67% of our supply chain comes out of China.
Oh, the blessings of globalism, Brandon.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
So here's two quick excerpts that just fulfill everything you're talking about. For Max Blumenthal, he posted the Washington Post saying the mood inside the Pentagon is, quote, intense and paranoid. Pentagon leaders worry the U.S. will expend its air stockpiles and the conflict will, quote, spiral out of control. This is precisely what Pentagon Joint Chief Chair Dan Kane warned of last week, as you talked about. And then there's this. CSIS munitions expert Seth Jones says the reality is neither Israel nor the United States have sufficient munitions, either offensive or defensive, for a war that really lasts weeks into months. So, I mean, again, I don't think the leaders of America don't know this, right?
Yeah, they must have gotten word because Seth Jones and those guys used to mock me when I would write about this. So all these official mouthpieces must. I saw Stavridis, Admiral Stavridis was saying this morning in the Wall Street, I think it was New York Post or New York Times or something. So obviously the word has gone out from the deep state. Hey, let everybody know it's a crisis because they're going to use this to stab the knife in Trump's back and take him down like they've always wanted to. So he's really fallen in to the worst possible trap imaginable politically, legally, and strategically so far.
Man, I hate to just constantly, talk about.
They don't call me Dr. Doom for nothing.
Well, it sounds accurate, and it's like I cannot help but think of this like the King Theoden situation in Lord of the Rings. Like I know it's like cheesy, but I mean, but that's how I feel. Is it's like I don't hate Trump, but the dude is not there. There's something else.
Tolkien is never cheesy, by the way. He's always relevant. So ask my daughters. I drive them crazy with this. So,
but I mean, but just in thinking about what Trump is doing right now, I can't believe that he's just going off and just like, screw it, we're gonna waste all of our munitions, and who cares if I get impeached? Like I don't think he's that way, but he's clearly being fed misinformation.
Well, Trump also has Trump has like a 1950s view of America. And somebody who knew him in the 80s, I'm close with, he's an old timer, but, he explained to me that, from Trump's perspective, he was paying attention to things in the 50s and then, in the 60s, and then he goes into the professional world and his whole world is not politics. It's not military. So for him, what he knows about the military and sort of American power and strength was forged in his teenage years, really, when he was a military academy student at that military academy in upstate New York. Right. And then he comes out of making all this money for 40 plus years and being famous and doing God knows what on the Epstein Island or with the Epstein, whatever. But he comes out of it, and to him, that America is still the America that it's just kind of being mismanaged. And this is his story in 2016. But now he still maintains that sort of 1950s, 1960s view of American military power. And that power has faded after many years of mismanagement by the Democrats and by the neoconservatives on the right. And he hasn't quite figured that out. He said it a lot in 2016, but I don't think he ever fully internalized what his criticism meant and how you have to then, if you believe those criticisms, how you have to react. And so he still thinks, we'll drain the stockpiles, but we can get them back up. And it's like, no, we can't get them back up. In fact, we've been trying to get them back up since 2022. Thank you, Mr. Zelensky. And we the best we've been able to do is build a few hundred Tomahawk cruise missiles when we really need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's such a shame. And it seems like he's willing to believe people that will feed him that line of, "Oh, we're America, we'll just do it. Just trust me, give me control, and I'll just get it done." He's like, "Yeah, hell yeah, we'll just do that," which is again extremely dangerous. In the final minute here, we've talked a little bit about China, but overall bird's eye view, are they going to come out hurt from this or doing better? Do you think?
Well, they're gonna in the near term, yeah, it's gonna hurt them. But just like the purges last month of those high-end military leaders, it's not going to take down the regime. The regime is hardening. The regime is preparing for what I think is going to be a world war. And the regime is hunkering down. And these are the processes you see of a hunkering down regime. Doesn't mean they're going to be as rich and as prosperous as they were the last 10 or 15 years. Probably not. But the idiots in Washington who always get it wrong and yet always get promoted are going to use those as signals to say, yeah, China's collapsing and we're on the ascendancy. I wish that were the case. I truly do. China's not going anywhere anytime soon. They are preparing for a very significant geopolitical event. And I think that geopolitical event in the form of a world war is coming very, very soon. Not a golden age, a world war.
Yeah. Well, and hell, if I was China, I would just look at America and go, we don't have to do anything. Let's just chill for 20 years, and then we'll be on top just as a
By 2050, they will be the #1 power. There's no doubt in my mind at this point. And by 2075, if things keep going at it, we'll be the #3 power behind India and China.
And maybe Israel, once they become the hegemonical power. Unbelievable. Brandon Weichert, incredible stuff. Thank you so much. Follow him at We the Brandon.
Thank you, sir.
Incredible
and
as always.
Emerald.tv.